waiting to see. Welcome, everybody. My name is Mimi Chapman, and I am filling in for Denise Burnette this afternoon. And Denise has been called into a meeting with her provost, and so I'll host until she can join us. And we are delighted that you're with us here to talk about emerging issues in social work education with the Executive Director of the Council for Social Work Education, Valu. Let me see. I don't have my glasses on, so Halaevalu Vakalahi, who is joining us today, our relatively new director at CSWE. So we are happy to hear from her about the state of doctoral education. We will have time for questions and answers. If a question comes in through the chat that seems particularly relevant, Valu has agreed that we might interrupt and speak to that question or comment. So John and I will be monitoring that and looking forward to this conversation, and we'll turn it over at this point.
Is it my turn to jump in? All right, aloha kako. It is wonderful to see all of you. A lot of familiar faces. It is truly, truly wonderful to see all of you. So, this is really, I am preaching to the choir. So I'm going to be sharing some information you probably have already thought about, have already implemented, but that's all right. We're going to have some Q&A at the end. So, but first, I really do want to, let me share my screen and let me know if you can actually see that. I do want to start with that. I want to start with the acknowledgement of the land that I'm currently at right now, CSWE in Alexandria, Virginia, and the 11 tribes who have nurtured and cultivated this land so that we can now enjoy it today and hopefully for generations to come. I also want to say that our hearts and prayers to our ohana and colleagues in Hawaii, particularly Maui. And today our weekly compass is going to go out with a little bit of information on how we can support from afar. But anyway, we're hoping that things will turn around quicker, sooner rather than later in terms of the recovery on Maui. It made me, this thing made me think about a number of people, and in particular, Mary Kawena Pukui, who is an author of Olelo No'eau in Hawaii, everything that is proverb in Hawaii. Auntie Mary Kawena was the one that put those together. So one of my favorite Olelo No'eau or proverb that she shared is, it says Ho'ihau ika iwikoa mo'o, which means return to the backbone. And so I think for all of us, we kind of know what that means, and we all of us have taught for a number of years, for many, many years, and know that at the end of the day, what we impart to our students and who become professionals and leaders are basically, that is the backbone for social work education. So today I'm going to provide some broad overview of CSWE as a major component of that backbone of social work education from baccalaureate to doctorate. And then from there, we'll have some Q&A. So if this is a repeat for you, I apologize, but I think it's helpful in terms of setting the context for our conversation today. So this first slide, this is our CSWE decision mat. This is something that I'm trying out in our meetings, and we have used it for decision making. Whatever it is that we do here at CSWE, I asked the staff in your meetings have this. It's an actual placemat. We've laminated and we have it in our meetings, that they consider or have in mind the land acknowledgement, the vision, the mission, our strategic goals, as well as my commitment as the new president here. There's also, this is a shameless plug for our governance and recruiting to expand representation, which is one of the 4 commitments that I part of the vision, my vision in small v for CSWE is to expand representation. So this is one way you could serve and really help to expand representation. These are our divisions at CSWE. As you know, the 2 pillars, the accreditation piece of it and the education piece of it, and everything else pretty much just works around to make sure that accreditation of our programs are going well. And then, of course, the professional development thereafter. So we have 4 divisions plus the Office of the President. So right now, under the Office of the President is me, the person who is over research, and the person who is over grants and special projects. So I'm really excited about the talents in all of CSWE. We have more than 850 accredited programs from Guam to the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. And many times I knew that, but I didn't really know that until I came to CSWE and saw the national platform and how much of an impact that all of these programs have had, not just in the communities, but especially in society. Part of the programs is the professional practice doctoral program, which I think I asked the accreditation team, and they pretty much said, we're working on the post-pilot implementation plan. As soon as we have something, we will upload it on the website. So I respect that and I honor that, and hopefully they will have some things that you can all tap in the very near future. We also, CSWE certifies all international degrees on the alphabet from A to Z. Whichever international degree, CSWE is the sole certifier of those international degrees. So we're excited about that and probably are going to be seeing some growth. Besides websites, emails, we also have a few primary communication mode. One of them is our weekly compass, which I think we're trying to dial that up a notch so that it's really, really helpful and useful and usable for our membership now that we have faculty, students, and staff as part of the membership. But we also have the CSWE Spark, which that we're still trying to make sure that we tighten that up a little bit more. So our communication mode. Now, tables at which we sit in this particular area, in addition to the social work tables, we have NAD, we have SWE and ASW, all of those other tables that we sit at. There's also these tables right here in the DC area that we have been invited to. The Washington Higher Education Secretariat, or ACE, the IPEC, which is the Interprofessional Education Consortium. FASHIP is like IPEC, but this is for schools of health professions, and CSWE is part of that. The National Academies, CHIA. We have regular conversation with the federal agencies, because these are agencies that fund us. They fund the MFP, the BWET, they fund a lot of things that CSWE and the membership are enjoying. So, and then of course the congressional engagement. Our government relations people, Louis Burke, consistently are engaging Congress. I've gone with them to visit some of the offices, especially the ones who are social workers, which is shrinking with people retiring. But I certainly hope that that would be part of the conversation today in terms of what do we do with that. So that's some of it. And then, of course, some of the issues that impact. Again, I'm going to just throw that out, and then we'll have a conversation about it if you have any questions. So a couple of things that have been happening continuously for the last number of months. I've been here for 7 months, going on my 8th month now, and these are 2 big ones that came out a couple of months ago. the legislative threats to academic freedom. This is the anti-DEIA legislation that we're seeing on the states, the SCOTUS decision. And, pretty much I can say that our stance on these issues they're pretty clear. We made statements about it. We have the EPAS 2022 that supports what social work education is, what's at the core of social work education. But also we've had conversations with federal agencies who have assured us that their commitment to DEIA, it has not wavered. The grants that they want faculty to apply for, they said, don't let this discourage people from applying to those grants that are positioned to help us diversify our workforce in particular. We've had conversation with our social work programs, and hopefully things will turn around, that we will be able to reconfigure and reimagine and maybe reposition some of the things that we're doing that are impactful, but are now being threatened by legislation on a state level. And then there's going to be some conversations at APM about some of these issues. And of course, if you come to APM, you will see other people who are already doing the work that I think would be wonderful for you to join. I think it's an added value also to be here in the DC area, where you come in contact with individuals and entities like the Education Council. And the Education Council, let me see if I can, oops. Okay, I guess I can't undo that little thing on the top, but the Education Council put out a document, I believe it was probably on Friday, last week Friday. And so it's a not that long of a document, a couple of pages, but they also highlighted there about some things that we can do in response to the SCOTUS decision, as well as anything else that is sort of like threatening our commitment to diversity and equity. And these are some of the things that they said, and I love the fact that they even included in there some of the things that are permissible. So they did an analysis of the decision and put this out. Now we're waiting, and I'm hoping in a couple of weeks we will have guidelines from the Department of Education. They will have more detailed guidelines. So we're looking forward to hearing that and to reading that. So, in addition to, just some of these that we probably are already doing, they also gave it's sort of like a shout out or encouragement for all of us as leaders in advancing equity and diversity, that higher education is still it plays a central role in society as an engine of social mobility. And we are committed as higher education to equity and excellence. So I think it's a wonderful thing to hear that we're not the only individuals or entities in a fight, but there are other entities that are doing this as like that is their job every single day, that are also standing up in solidarity with us. So, and then, like I said, the issues impacting social work education it's a long list, and it's probably it's going to require tons and tons of conversations, but I wanted just to highlight a few of them here for us. Licensure, we're in active participation with ASWB and ASW and ABSW, NAD. We're constantly having conversations about the data that came out last year and how that would impact the pipeline. And it's not just a pipeline into social work, but also the pipeline up to the PhD or the doctoral level. The Pay for Placement campaign, that is a conversation that we continue to have. And at APM, there's going to be a conversation by a committee of the board of directors, and they will have a couple of exemplars who are going to share some of the ideas that they have been able to implement help out. These are our students who are leading this pay for placement campaign, but we're not the only profession who's doing it, but our students are. And I always tell people, like, we taught them well. I mean, they're just doing what we taught them to do, which is advocate and advocate. So the political social work, CRISP is one partner that we have continuously worked with, in addition to our government relations people. New Year Community Trust, as you probably all know, they funded us for the Doctoral Policy Fellows, which we're really, really thrilled about. This is going to be our second year, and hopefully it'll be a third year and then renewal. So we're excited about our Doctoral Policy Fellows. Social work research, I mean, the active advocacy with Lewis Burke. I spend a lot of time with them, either on Zoom or in-person conversation with the federal agencies on how do we increase the number or representation of social work research and researchers in NIH, HRSA, SAMHSA, Department of Education, whoever is putting out money for research. How do we increase our numbers? There's a conversation on the micro-macro balance, leveraging the versatility of the social work degrees. Again, I put it on here as they're just points that I wanted to make in terms of these are some of the things that we're working on now. But by all means, something that we didn't just start, came from my predecessor and people before that, but we're trying to carry that on and hopefully turn it up a notch. Student debt, post-COVID challenges, the IPE, the interprofessional education arena, the national academies, IPEC, FASHIP, West, all of these entities that we collaborate with have given us opportunities as social work CSWE to sit on those tables, provide feedback. And so I certainly hope that as a result of that, we create some kind of a directory for CSWE to tap our membership when projects or need or something comes up that we may be able to partner on. So technology, of course, AI, machine learning, those are things that it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. It's here to stay. So we're trying to figure out how have our programs, our social work education programs, leverage those. And I can tell you, before I left Hawaii, almost 8 months ago, there was a grant that we got from AIM Ahead. They are $23 million that they got from federal government. They're located in Texas, and they came over to Hawaii because they were interested in using AI and machine learning to collect data, analyze data, and hopefully make use of data in the community. They wanted community partners. And so we were very fortunate. We have one of our partners in the community, Papakolea, is an indigenous Native Hawaiian community, homestead community right in the urban area in Honolulu. They partnered with us and they got a grant from AIM Ahead to use AI and ML in some of their data collection and how to train their community health workers. And the PI on that is a social worker, Dr. Adrian Dillard, who has a PhD, MSW and PhD in social work. So we're proud of that, and we're proud of the representation of social work in that arena. The National Academies also have done some workshops on it that we've attended, our education division have attended. And then, hopefully we'll be able to continue that partnership with programs. So global and international education, you're all familiar with that. IASSW is an iconic partner in that. We have our Canada counterparts as well. The PhD career pathways, that's always have been a topic of conversation. How do we leverage the versatility of that degree, we train them for the academy to do research. But is there other choices? Is there other pathways now that we know that social workers are needed everywhere, from policy to practice to education? So the PhD career pathways. And then, of course, the workforce shortage. Definitely a topic that's going to live on forever, but, well, hopefully not forever, but we do have some of our social work programs have grants from HRSA on the behavioral health, BWET. Those are BWET grants. And HRSA is really excited about social work really taking advantage of those opportunities. So hopefully the workforce as a result of that will at least put a dent on it, the shortage of it. Now, this I've been thinking about investment, not necessarily in just the investment of time and energy, but investment in every sense of the word. And so a few things that I'm thinking about. These are a list of CSWE's investment in our students and our faculty. As you can see, the MFP, 50 years old. It's pretty awesome to imagine that. The IMFP is fairly new. SUDEOs, the New York Community Trust Doctoral Policy Program. We also had the summit, our first student summit this past June, the Research Policy and Practice Summit, which we're really excited about. And then we've had webinars that students and faculty could take advantage of. Our BWET grants, our journal, our CSWE Press, the annual program meeting, of course. That's certainly, we hope that that's certainly something that just becomes useful, increase the usefulness every year. It becomes better. It's great where it's at now, but I think there's always room to do beyond that. And then, of course, accreditation. But these other thoughts that I had, and I just kind of dumped it on there as a downloading so that it could be something that you could be thinking about as you work with doctoral students and in getting them prepared for the world that they're going to jumping into in academia. And the SWOT analysis, like constantly doing some kind of ongoing SWOT analysis, social work education and doctoral education for that matter. In my conversations with people in this area and with the different entities, they often, majority of the time, they don't even know what social workers do. These are medical doctors and people who are not familiar with social work. And I think that this is part of, I really think that this contribution that doctoral education can make in terms of helping us really creating definitions of social work essentials. Yes, I probably, if I go into the dictionary, our dictionary and all of the books that we have written, we probably have it in there. But then nobody's is tapping it from outside of social work. So those one-pagers that you get hand off to somebody like a medical doctor who's got money to give, but really don't know what social workers do. There's also this idea of social work as a public good. We've always known that is at our core, but I don't really know whether we make it so visible that people automatically put us in the bill, automatically put us in the funding. Mentorship, just some genuine outcome-based mentorship. And I see some of you in this call who have been that for me throughout my career. Some of you, I probably have not met you in person, but trust me, you have been a mentor through your writing, through the things that you do for CSWE that I have sat in as a commissioner or board member. You have been that mentor for me, even if it wasn't formalized. The power of academics, I put it there because I had a conversation with some people in the state level, and some of them just pretty much said that's the reason why they're attacking academia, because they know how powerful of a position we have. So why not we leverage it for whatever good it can do for our society and our communities. And then of course just some thinking bold, thinking creative, repositioning institutions. So for me, these are some of the things. I have like a long list of like 3 big charts on my wall, and a world map here on the other wall that I often just download things to. And so I apologize for this download, but this is something that I thought I'm just going to put it there. Food for thought for our GADE people. So the other week I had a conversation with a couple of friends of mine, and I'm not sure how we got to talking about snakes, because I'm not a fan of snakes. I just thinking about it makes me nervous. But my friend is from North Carolina, and she said there's a copperhead snake. There's this copperhead snake, and it's common. However, the most dangerous ones are the young ones because they haven't learned how to regulate their venom. And I thought about that this morning when I was, preparing to get on this, and I thought about, okay, so these are like very powerful animals. But the young ones don't know how to regulate their venom yet. They're learning. They're going to learn. And I thought about my role as president of CSWE, but I also thought about my role when I was a faculty, a regular faculty, and then a dean. What would have been my role in guiding and mentoring these emerging social work leaders? Because sometimes, their passion gets the best of them, and developmentally they're not there. So we have to guide them along the way. And I thought about that, and as I was preparing, because I just thought, wow, if there is a group that are positioned for that, it is this group, because you're training, educating, preparing the next group to do what we did for the generation before, and getting them prepared for the world stage and to usher in the next generation of social work leaders and professionals. So anyway, I didn't mean to get off on that, but I wanted to share that. So, but I do want to end with a little personal touch, and then we'll have Q&A. As you all know, of all the advances in the world, there is one thing that makes the biggest impact for any student, especially our doc students, whom I have seen struggle along the way, but at the end of the day, they turn out just fine. And that is who they are and the people who surround them and love them and support them. That's what I have found personally that have brought out the brilliance in a student. I know you know that. But each of us have been bestowed with that kuleana, with that responsibility to prepare students. So this is my mom and dad, my grounding. This is my now 16-year-old son, but I prefer to remember him as a 6-year-old, because now he's got a mouth and a brain and everything else. They make decisions like that. And home, Tonga, where I was born, and Hawaii, where pretty much where I was cultivated, nurtured, and then came here to the continental US to be tried and tested. But I think that going through the academic system, the higher education in particular, when I thrived was when people, entities, systems, whatever we want to call it, valued me and the things I brought to the table. And I think for all of you, you probably ditto, you have done this for your own students, value for what they bring to the table. But I'm also the investment of many. And this is an incomplete slide, because there's so many people who have touched my lives along the way that I definitely know our students, they need this. Our students need that. But I also know that we need to impress on our doc students now, because they're going to be ushering the next generation of social work educators that they need to be now position themselves to be mentoring those students coming up. So I am the investment of many. These are the giants whose shoulders I stand. I have been mentored in my scholarship, so it never lagged. I think our doc students continue to need that. Whenever I had an opportunity to work with a doc student or be their reviewer for a dissertation of some sort, I always write little notes at the end and say, don't forget, don't let your scholarship and your publication, your research fall by the wayside. That is the one thing you are doing for yourself and for your career. So I have been mentored throughout this, and I certainly believe that as doctoral students, this is something they're going to continue to need. And then, of course, I then had to pay it forward. Lots of work when I was in academia, and I think it continues to encourage me, because a lot of the work that I've been able to be a part of are now being carried on by the next generation of social work students and social work professionals. Wayfinding, you can see the slide, wayfinding. This is an ancient method for how Pacific people navigated the Pacific Ocean, one of the largest body of water in the world. But Pacific ancestors relied solely on their connection to the water, to the air, sky, earth, in navigating this large body of water. So they were the greatest navigators in the world, but as you can imagine, the Pacific Ocean, and relying solely on that was wayfinding. We try to revive that these days to make sure that the generations of Pacific people remember that, use it to navigate academia, and hopefully it will be of some success to them. So this is my last slide, but pride slide, where I've had the opportunity, the Hui SRC, this is a student research center, NIH funded. I was a principal investigator, and then it's been transferred to my colleagues when I joined CSWE. But this was a student research center, undergraduate students, biomedical research, and social work students. They were in the middle of everything that was fun, innovative, and really forward thinking. And a few of them did a team science project for under Hui SRC, and it was to look at the elders in a community and how Malama Aina, caring for the land, helped them through the COVID years, as well as now upkeep their health. I also, this photo on the bottom, I'm tonguing and I count, or Ohana, this Ohana counts. That was 2020, the year when data was desegregated, and we had an actual section for Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders that allowed us to click our actual ancestry background. So that one was a really exciting thing to be a part of. And then, of course, the last picture. So I have 7 PhDs, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander women who are at University of Hawaii, who are going through the PhD program. And I certainly hope that they're going to get the experience I got, that it was extraordinary to go through a PhD program in social work, and then they come back and help their community. So that's my last. I apologize. I'm thinking about them and their struggle, and I certainly hope that they find faculty that's going to help them through the struggle. So, okay, I'm going to stop there. Thank you very much for that. And if you have any questions, I am here, available for questions. So oh, this is my full name. I have decided whenever I have an opportunity to write my whole full name out, I would say, I know people can't even say it. I had a hard time, I'm sure, as a child trying to spell it. I am certain, but this is my full name. So if you ever see it in any place, just don't mind me. Every once in a while, I feel like I have to fully write my name out so that the totality of me shows up. So, but anyway, thank you everybody for allowing me to just download for a little bit there.
Valu, thank you. This is wonderful. And thank you so much for the land acknowledgement at the beginning, and also for, reminding all of us here, many of whom are on the mainland, what is happening in Hawaii. It's easy to read the newspaper and then forget the newspaper, and we don't want to do that. So, and I think people would love to hear you say your full name if you were willing. I know I would.
So it is Halaevalu Ofahengaue Vakalahi.
Beautiful. Thank you. Let's open it up. People could either put questions in or discussion topics, things they'd like to talk more about that Valu has brought up. You could put them in the chat. You can raise your hand and speak for yourself, whatever you would prefer to do.
Yes, hello. This is Jerome Shealy. Valu, thank you very much for that presentation.
Hi, Jerome.
So good to see you, and greetings from Anna McFactor and everybody at Morgan State University. You know, we're very proud of you. But look, you mentioned this in your presentation a bit. You alluded to it. But many of us, of course, maybe most or all of us, are concerned about this anti-woke movement, particularly coming out of Florida with Governor DeSantis. Is CSWE planning on any kind of formal support for schools of social work in Florida to combat this kind of revisionist American history movement that we have in Florida, and that seems to be spreading nationwide? So is there any kind of idea about any kind of formal support for schools of social work in Florida, Texas, or some of these states like that? Again,
excellent question.
Very proud of you, very proud of you.
Thank you, Dr. Shealy, and please send my regards to Dean McFadder and the team at Morgan. The last couple of months, we've had ongoing conversation with our programs at Florida. One of the things that we figured out, it may be just people who have said to me and advised me to reach out first before you do anything that might be harmful. Reach out first, ask them what it is that they need. So we reached out to all of the programs in Florida. I sent out an email to all of them and just pretty much say, okay, we need to jump on a call, let me know when. And we had an opportunity to jump on a call with a number of the schools there. And in the beginning, they said, follow our lead, don't do anything that's gonna bring attention. We're trying our best here on the ground to navigate this. And then about a month later, they said, we really need for CSWE to make a statement. So we issued a statement and we shared it with the rest of the membership, but we issued it and it specifically named what was going on in Florida. We then reached out to the people, our programs in Texas. And it was yesterday, I got an opportunity to speak with one of the deans there at UT Austin, Dean Cole, and we're planning on having maybe a follow-up conversation with them to see what it's kind of support that they would like for CSWE to provide, knowing that they probably know there are some things stay away from and some things, yes, follow us on it. And so the Diversity Center that we have at CSWE, it is a partnership with UT Austin. So that Diversity Center I don't know what is going to happen, but diversity DEIA is something that they want out on naming anything with that. So we're hoping that even if we have to reposition and reimagine the name, that the work continues to go forward. And so we're encouraged that these programs in Florida, as well as the programs in Texas, are navigating this and letting us know, okay, this is what we need from you. This is what we need. Some of them just want to be thought partners. They just want to process with us. This is what we're planning on doing. We don't need to say anything. We just need for them to, we just need for us to be a listening ear. So in October at 8 p.m., there's going to be a session on Sunday that we created to have the Florida schools, particularly Alan Barsky. I've asked him to head this up. Alan is going to head up a session. It's on Sunday, the morning before the awards luncheon. So we were able to fit it in on Sunday. And that conversation is going to be, we booked a space for them. That conversation is going to be specifically on what you're asking about, Jerome, and academic freedom and all of this anti-legislation. Now, we're hopeful that by then we would have a lot more guidelines from Department of Education and the other Education Council. Maybe ACE might have some guidelines that we can share, that we can bring to the conference, give it to Alan Barsky and his team, and then maybe they can distribute it that way. So at this point, as the CSWE, that's pretty much what we're doing. In addition to that, we're constantly checking in with our federal partners, because the MFP, the IMFP, those are all SUDEOs, those are all federally funded, and just asking them, is there a chilling effect to all of this state level legislation? And they, from their perspective, is like, on the federal government level, those fundings are not going to go away because of that. The funding might go away just because of cut in the budget, not necessarily because of all these problems that we're having. And who knows? You never know. It might. But at this point, those funding are pretty safe because there is a DEI platform, DEI platform that the federal government is standing on.
Thanks much, Valu. I appreciate the response.
Thank you.
Who's next? Others, let me just check the chat here. So Tanya is asking, does CSWE partner, Tanya, are you thinking, or I'm not sure I'm getting it right, whether it's Tanya or Tania, so forgive me.
It's Tanya. Thank you so much. And I was just thinking in terms of what may be coming ahead, and I'm from Alabama, so this is certainly a huge concern for us. And DeSantis filed a lawsuit. I was also born and raised in Miami, Florida. So it's like I'm surrounded by so much threat that, and we constantly talk about it. So in terms of what may be coming down the line, especially as it relates to accreditation, I know that DeSantis filed a lawsuit against the Department of Education, and that was several months ago. So I'm wondering if CSWE or perhaps other professional accreditation bodies would consider, I don't know, like maybe filing some like class action suit, or I appreciated the letter that went out, the support letter that went out a couple of months ago. And I'm just worried because it feels like our profession is being attacked, and that's more than I meant to say, but just any thoughts about that, I'd appreciate.
That's perfect. You know, one of the things that I have started to do with the executive director of accreditation, that unit, that division at CSWE, I started to just follow her where she goes in terms of meetings with other accrediting bodies. I remember last month I joined her for a conversation with Chia, and that conversation had everybody you can think of that is an accrediting body that was part of that. So I saw it firsthand on how collectively they were able to talk about some of these and able to say, if you ever need us, this is the consortium that can write the letter, support the letter, whatever it might be.
Okay.
So we're already in those conversations. There's also, there's a group that I can't remember the acronym for it, but it is for health professions. So all accrediting bodies for health professions. And we're part of that. And in fact, we're exploring being the lead in that. And so I think in a couple of months, we've already spoken with some of the leadership in that particular consortium and have asked if you want to pass it on to another entity, CSWE will take it on. So we're hoping that as a result of those opportunities, just to be thought partners with other entities that are going through the same thing, that we'll be able to come out with maybe, I don't know, maybe some options or alternatives to deal with this. But rest assured, we are definitely in those conversations. CSW is definitely in those conversations. I remember one time I don't remember which meeting it was, but it was an interprofessional meeting. I think maybe it was the Washington Higher Education Secretariat, and a number of other entities actually spoke up and said, we understand that DEI is at the core of social work. So we're going to have to be here when they need us as thought partners. So we're not alone. And maybe that's some of the reasons why we are taking courage that maybe this is, whatever that guy is doing is not going to be sticking. And maybe it'll stick for a little bit, but sustainability of that, because money, it's going to cost money.
Yes.
I don't know if communities are going to be very kind to somebody who's going to get rid of a lot of federal money that's coming to the state. So, yeah. So,
well,
thank you for asking.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll just chime in and say, I loved what you brought up in your story of the snake and, really trying to, with regard to these issues for us, many of us whom are directing programs, doctoral programs, helping younger people, at least think about strategy over outrage is, I thought that was really embodied well in your story of the snake and the venom. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mimi.
Who's next?
One of the things that I was wondering is, what are some of the things that we could be thinking about proactively to deal with this diversity, equity, and inclusion kind of movement, and kind of move away from just reacting to the various things that come down that are probably just going to intensify as the campaign for presidency moves into high gear?
Great question. I'm going to just download and you can tell me, redirect me if I'm totally going off. One of the things that I often do is well, I'm trying my best not to often do. I draw a conclusion on a heading instead of reading what is the really detail. So when the SCOTUS decision came out, I immediately reacted to that like I was a student instead of an adult who have gone through the academia. So I reacted to it, and then I caught myself and I said, okay, did you really read what was this about? And I think that that's a perspective we probably need to instill in our students a little bit more. So I read it again. It's race-based admission. Okay, race-based admission. Okay, now I've compartmentalized it. That's one place where we can focus. But then there's 90% other of things that we need to be doing. Like, for example, I really think that there is space in social work education for an increased visibility for political social work. I know that there's already programs specifically. I think University of Michigan got a program on that. And many of you are already well versed in terms of that. But we're not represented, especially in the federal level. There is maybe 4 or 5 who are social workers who are still there. I think 15 years ago, there was probably about 11 to 13 of them. Now there's 4 or 5. And I think we could be proactive by creating that pipeline. I know I'm talking to doctoral student faculty, but you also, I'm sure that you also are involved with undergraduate as well as the MSW. But I really was hoping that that could be a space where social work could make space for some of our students who may be interested in it. Even if they're PhD students, they might be interested in policy. That might be where they need to be. We pride ourselves in terms of, our curriculum has research, policy, theory, practice, and practicum. Well, why not we leverage that? Because I think that they make really great policymakers. The other piece that I think GADE would make a really big dent is the research and data piece of it. We can say all we want about, we need to be in the legislation. We need to be in that title. Social work needs to be part of that beautiful building, NASM building in DC. Social work's name need to be on there. We can say all that, but data will or will not support that. So I think that there needs to be a lot more data generation. And I think our students and all of you have already done that, but I think we need to put it somewhere so we can access it easily. AI and machine learning is here to stay. I don't know how, again, like I said, I haven't had the opportunity to really engage all of the programs, 900 programs, but I don't know how far we are in social work education in terms of embracing that. And maybe in your programs you have, but maybe embracing it at the doctoral level, where those students are familiar with it. When they get out, they know how to teach that. They know how to use that as a method of delivering their classes. But also, how is AI going to help us, or machine learning, that's going to help us? Again, I go back to the piece about data, that we really do need data on a lot of things we're doing that might be what we're used to doing. But whenever I'm asked in circles that I sit at, do you guys have data to back that up? I always said, okay, I'll be right back. I'm going to check if CSWE has that data or somebody else has that data. So again, Lawrence, I may be preaching to the choir and saying things that you all already know. And if you do, just know that this is an emphasis. If you're already doing it, this is just an emphasis from CSWE. So.
I will just put in a plug. GADE is planning a webinar in a month or so, specifically looking at generative AI, so ChatGPT and those kinds of platforms and tools, and how they may be best used in doctoral education and in research. So it's not exactly machine learning, but it's a, kind of a subset of that. So more to come. Any other questions or comments that people want to bring up while Valu is with us?
And Mimi, I hope this is not a one and done kind of a conversation. I would love to hear what people have to say, and maybe after today you probably have some things to think about and then come back or do a second session. I'll make the time for it. I just think it's important for you to have the support from your association. This is your organization. CSWE belongs to its membership. So I'd be more than happy to come back if there's a need for a second conversation.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah, I do have a question. This is this is Dr. Crystal Hayes. I'm from California Baptist University. So we're a faith-based institution, pretty obviously. And among the faith-based higher ed institutions, particularly those who are in the Christian consortium of colleges and things, we've been hearing of universities that are either dropping social work programs or not willing to start social work programs. There's this perceived, I don't know if hostility is too strong, but definitely, lack of alignment of values. Now, obviously, we don't perceive it that way, and we have a very healthy social work programs, bachelor's, master's, and doctoral program. But can you speak to that at all about CSWE as the accrediting body and feelings towards about faith-based institutions, especially in light of some of the conversations we've already had about this, all of the attacks against some of the things that we value, diversity and inclusion and that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Crystal. So, I mean, where do I start? At first, I thought maybe we're going to see some kind of a dent or a decrease in the number of programs that are coming up for candidacy. And we haven't. We haven't seen that. And I think Larry is in here, and Larry could even speak to it if he wants to. But I think the accreditation, if I remember it correctly, a couple of decades ago, I was here as an accreditation specialist, and Larry Ortiz, the greats were here. And I remember the conversation was about this. Accreditation, what our purpose is to allow space for programs to tell their story, the way that they meet the standards. Contextually, that's important. Content, that's important. And so I cannot imagine that message being put away or being done with. I think that is a message now. And like I said, I haven't seen a decrease in the number of candidacy, people putting in applications for it. And I don't imagine that ever going away, because I still think that people see social work as a public good, and that if it's not here, it is totally incomplete care, incomplete health care. So I think when you talk about the chilling effect of something like this anti-DIA, I think social work have gone through something like this in recent years. They can reinvent themselves, or us. We can reinvent ourselves, reposition ourselves with something that is still core, but it's innovative, may look different, but it is still core to social work education. But I can't imagine us having only one type of institution as the accreditation. I can't imagine that. Social work is too big to have only we only accredit this kind of institution. No, we accredit all institutions that meet the standards. And meeting those standards that's when they tell their story. How did you meet the standards in blah, blah, blah? How did you meet the standard in environmental justice, human rights, whatever the accreditation standards might be. So I guess my bottom line is I'm not fearful in terms of, well, there's a chilling effect. And I think because I have access to a lot of conversation that's going on here, that have at least given me some courage to say, we'll be okay. We just need to hang in there, weather the storm and hang in there. But Larry, anything you want to add? I don't want to pick on you, but anything you want to add?
No, well, thank you very much. And I can't imagine what I could add to that, but thank you so much. But I think that your point that you've made, and I think is that we're not backing down. And I think we've learned lessons from history about how we have capitulated to the margin, to the fringe voices that are anti everything that we stand for. And we hurt a lot of people. We failed large groups of people in our profession because of that. And I hope that we learn from that, and we're not doing this again. You know, we stand for anti-racism. How can you not stand for that? Okay, so how you do that, I think that becomes the creative story that's done in the context and the history of the organization. But that doesn't mean that you don't pursue it in whatever mechanisms and whatever pathways you have for you. So I thank you, Valu. I think that was very well stated.
Thank you, Larry.
Hi, Malu. I really appreciate, I'm seeing you and sharing all the, information with us. That is so important, especially at this time. So one thing I also want to, add a little bit is GADE actually, the other thing is about anti-racist, pedagogy. Because GADE actually issued a statement on anti-racism, in 2020 when we're dealing with all this thing. And I think right now, of course, right now they're attacking or targeting admission. And I think the next one, they probably will target scholarship and things like that. But still, I would like to hear from you and also the rest of the group, any thoughts about how we are able to, keep our spirit, anti-racist, pedagogy, and be preemptive, because our students are also afraid, faculty also afraid, of different legal consequence or things that are coming. So I just want to hear a little bit about your wisdom or your tips or advice, for us, in dealing with all these things that's coming along now.
Yeah, and anybody on this call, you can jump in, but I think you also brought up the question that Joel asked on the chat about DIA being legal now. Well, it will be January 1st. DIA in Texas, that's an issue that we're gonna have to rethink. But I think in the conversation with the schools there, that will be part of our conversation, will be about that. So how then now do we move forward, not back down, but also be reasonable in what it is that we're going to do to make sure that we meet the accreditation standards. At the same time, we service our communities. And I think that that's at the heart of it. Is anybody in the community better off as a result of having social work there? Well, absolutely. We can say with that, absolutely. But I think the Education Council, there are 5 actions for institutions, is probably an example of some things that I think we have to keep in mind. Like, for example, and this is specifically to the SCOTUS, the SCOTUS decision, which is tied in anyways, the same thing that they're talking about now on the state level. But they said that inclusive recruitment and outreach continue to be permissible. So it's finding loophole, finding a way around whatever nonsense that they're trying to do, finding a way around it, which is inclusive recruitment and outreach continue to be permissible. Considering an applicant's background, their experiences, their perspectives associated with race or ethnicity in admission is permissible. Okay, this is their analysis on it. Designing policies associated with socioeconomic status, wealth, geography, first generation status, and more is permissible. Collecting disaggregated data, including by race and ethnicity, continues to be permissible. So I think social work, we're kind of good at getting into the deep and really getting things out in terms of, okay, we can do that, we can't do that, but we can work around it. And so I guess I'm just generalizing in terms of maybe that's something we can all think about in terms of the programs. What are some things that we can do that is, we divide it up in terms of compartmentalizing what is really, that is breaking the law. No, this one is permissible based on some of the guidelines that's going to come out, in addition to the Education Council's guidelines. Remember, the Department of Education, their guidelines not come out yet. And in those guidelines, they're going to have a FAQ, frequently asked questions. So the waiting for it is so difficult. Sometimes I'm a very impatient person. I can't wait for things. Things need to move on, but waiting for it, I think it's going to be worth it once we have all of that data. And hopefully, once we have all of that, hopefully by 8 p.m., we'll be able to share it with the membership largely. So, but thank you for asking the question. And Joel, thank you for the reminder. I get it.
I'm going to jump in and ask a question also. So in North Carolina, we have this, the state has implemented what's referred to as the compelled speech policy, which is directed at hiring at hiring, I will say that. So hiring for faculty as well as student admission. So there's some overlap with the SCOTUS decision, but it is distinct. And it is talking specifically about not asking, kind of takes aim at diversity statements and things like that you might ask in a hiring process. And so, but what has come out in that policy is that programs can ask for an exception if their accreditation standards are such that asking about people's attitudes towards working with diverse populations or things like that relate specifically to accreditation. And so I don't know, so that applies to, physicians associations and nursing and all kinds of health professions for sure. But I don't know whether that is nationally true or whether that is just a part of this policy in particular. Yeah. So maybe Valu?
Yeah, I do not know. However, I do know that there was a Senate Bill 244, I think, that came out in Florida that had the same, that was the spirit of it, is that if it is required by your accrediting body, you can use blah, blah, blah. So I can't imagine having no champions anywhere. Well, I guess we can imagine, but I don't want to imagine having no champions in all of the states who will at least have some sense to say, yeah, we can do this, but however, is there a counter? So I think the champions for social work, DIA, all of the professionals that are into the DIA movement in Florida influenced that one particular, I believe it was Senate Bill 244. And I think it did pass, but correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody's familiar with that. But what you're talking about, Mimi, I mean, that could be like a model that states could take and say they can do all they want to do. However, this is another way of of looking at it, and maybe offer
It
it as an
still
alternative.
creates a chilling effect. I wouldn't call it a model, but nonetheless, I mean, yes, there is a workaround, sort of. We're hopeful, but well, I think we are at just at one. Oh, did we have one more?
Tawanda?
Hi. My name's Tawanda Hubbard. I'm from Rutgers School of Social Work. I'm a practitioner educator at DSW. And I just want to pick up off of a point that Dr. Farmer made about the reacting to, and wondering who all is being invited to the table as we think about this, because I'm thinking about how if we are caught up in being distracted by chasing and reacting to, we are not really putting our energy and efforts to really affirming and strengthening direction of what we value as social work educators and social work as a profession, because our energy and resources are being directed to the reacting and chasing after versus what are we going to affirm, how we're going to do it in innovative ways. Language is very powerful. And I'm thinking about, practitioners on the doctoral level, but also our social workers who hold JDs. I think they need to be at the table too, right? And we really need to be thinking outside of the box. And I know I have a value for PhDs, but we also have our practitioner doctors that we cannot leave out of this conversation, and how we're going to think about affirming and upholding our own values and how we put them in operation.
Tawanda, you're frozen.
To keep us distracted and to keep us chasing after, and we could be losing traction in the
Wanda, you're frozen. We're at just about at time, but I think you're raising great point.
Yeah. I can respond a little bit, maybe Tawanda can hear. But I think, the excellent point in terms of making sure that we're at the table for those conversations. And I can tell you the conversations that we're having, your deans and directors are part of it. NAD is part of it. NASW is part of it. ASWB is part of it. SWE is part of it. Anything that comes out of the Social Work Leadership Roundtable, everybody who's at administrative level represents that entity in the conversation. But you're absolutely right. And I think that was the gist of what the Florida programs and what the Texas programs are saying, that why don't we sit down and really think about how do we move forward with this instead of chasing all of these things with, and that's something that I have to say, people here at CSWE, the division VPs especially, they're very good at, we're going to stand back, look, where do we need to go, and not have to chase all of these things that are going around, because we don't have resources or energy or time for that matter to be doing all of that chasing around and reacting. So I think you hit the nail right on the head in terms of that is the way we're going to have to handle this, is sit back and really, and leveraging our JDs, MSWs. In fact, we have one who is in the HHS, Rachel Levine, the secretary of, I guess she's the secretary of HHS. One of her key people is an MSW JD. I got an opportunity to meet her at one of the meetings here, and she's a very proud MSW JD. So I can imagine that she was instrumental in making sure social work was at the table when they had a all medical doctor conference. And so I got a chance to represent CSWE, and I'm certain that she was instrumental in making sure that we were at the table for that conversation. So, but thank you.
Hey,
Thank
Balu, I think you have we've taken you past your hard stop of 1:15. So apologize for that, but we are so delighted that you were able to be with us, and thank you so much for your offer to come back, and I will take you up on it. Thanks to everyone who attended today. This has been a great conversation. It won't be the last one for sure. And we'll look forward to future GADE webinars and CSWE webinars where we can talk about these issues together.
Thank you. Thank you again.